Welcome to the AI Effect, the show for small business owners who are ready to move beyond quick hacks and actually build smarter, more resilient businesses with AI. We'll talk honestly about what's working, what's a mess, the risks you really need to know about, and the simple experiments that create real results. I'm Tara Elsanger, an AI strategist and digital tool trainer, and my job is to make this feel doable, not daunting. Let's begin now.
Hello and welcome to the AI Effect podcast. I'm delighted to be joined here today by Lucy O'Reilly. Lucy, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, sure, Tara. Thank you so much. My name is Lucy O'Reilly, and my business is Designs for Growth. And I help midlife entrepreneurs who struggle with communicating their difference, their brilliance online through brand strategy, brand design, and irresistible websites. That's me.
Fabulous. And, I know we're kind of looking in reality at the kind of creative side of it when it comes to AI, which I know is going to be a really big topic to cover. But, I suppose in your role working with people, if we can maybe just delve into that a little bit more, like how do you help them to do all of that and to come out with that kind of website and fabulous kind of branding behind it?
Well, we start in an ideal world, we start with brand strategy. When I started my business, I just did website design, but I very quickly realized that people actually didn't know what to put on their websites. They didn't know how to write their copy. They didn't know what made them different to other people who offer a similar service. So that strategic bit became, quickly became clear that that's where people needed help in the first instance. So in an ideal scenario, we start with brand strategy so that they get clarity on where they're going with their business, clarity on who their ideal customers are, what makes them different, and so on. So that once you've gone through that process, it makes the implementation or the creative side of designing branding or designing a website or writing the website copy or even choosing your brand photographer an awful lot easier because you have that clarity and you have made decisions around your brand and around your choice of customer. We've dug deep into who that customer is, so we understand their pain points. We know the language that they use, but we also know the personality of the brand and how we want to communicate that through copy, through images and branding and so on. So when you get that strategic bit in place, as I say, it makes all the rest a lot easier. It makes your social media marketing, it makes all your marketing, all your sales a lot easier
The
because
line up and yeah. And I wonder if you'd agree with me on this, where I find we're kind of in this obviously Instagram world now where we're seeing a lot of people saying things like you can set up your business within 24 hours and all this immediacy where that kind of strategy that you're talking about and even that level of detail, it's almost being overlooked.
well, I believe it's been overlooked for a long time anyway, because people are so focused on the deliverables. So the site, the website or the logo, and they just see the outward facing bit of their business and they're like, well, I have to have that first and foremost. And before I go on, I will say that when you're at the very beginning of your business journey, I do think that it's fine to just get started with
Yeah.
something and to do your business, do the work for 12 or 18 months. You will learn loads. You will be able to make much more strategic decisions. After having done that for a while, you will know which customers you enjoy working with the most. You'll know which services are the most profitable. So I do believe that to a certain extent, yes, you can just get started with a one-page website or just with
Yeah.
an Instagram account, whatever. But to build a brand and a scalable business that gives you the revenue that you want down the line or affords you the lifestyle that you want or allows you to build that bigger business that you want if you want to have employees. I work with a lot of small business owners, but a lot of
Yeah.
business out there have big ambitions. It's very hard to do that on a
Mhm.
shoestring
Yeah.
strategy or without a strategy because it is just spray and pray. At some point, you have to make those strategic decisions if you want the business to grow.
To grow with it as well. And it's actually a really interesting point there where there are people who are potentially who do struggle, who feel like they need to get it 100% ready. They need, they spend so much money on, as you said, like things like the logo, or, on a specific name for their business. And are so worried about all of those elements where they're actually not even going to speak to the customer about what it is that they actually want. So it's a really good point, and people need to focus more on actually, maybe being 70% ready and actually just speaking and engaging with customers.
At the very beginning, I really, because all of that is your market research to a certain extent,
Yeah.
anyway. So I do think, just get going. Don't spend thousands on, a new website or whatever. It's too early. So you don't even know. You
Yes.
don't even know yet. You don't have the answers to the questions if you work with a copywriter or you engage AI or whatever to write your copy. It's gonna be difficult to make it, you know, specific to you to, if you haven't thought through the strategic questions,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
we cover. So it's like, as I say, if you're just starting out, by all means, off you go. But after about 12 to 18 months, it's usually you then start to look at your DIY website and kind of go, actually, I'm sort of better than that, or you've got
Yes.
results. Or you could be 5, 10, or even 15 years in business and still be looking at your existing strategy, your existing messaging, going, that doesn't actually fit anymore. Is that's the most of the people I work with are already in business for a while, but they're looking at their messaging, they're looking at their branding, going, yeah, that worked that's got me here, but
Yes.
it's not going to get me where I want to go. So that's where there's a bit of, new strategic thinking to be done, around, is it the choice of customer? Is it the market that you're in? Maybe you want to go into a new market, or maybe you're pivoting in terms of your offering. So all of that requires a bit of strategic thinking as well. Doesn't always mean that then you need a new logo or you need a new website at
Exactly. Maybe
all.
it's just maybe potentially redefining it.
Exactly.
And I know you and I have discussed this in the past as well when we met in Vodafone last year. About, I suppose, that kind of like, you don't know what you don't know when you're starting a business, as you said yourself. And maybe it is the case where, as you said, you just have to have a business, some form of a business, some form of a landing page where you're getting clients, you're starting to engage with them and talk to them, and kind of redefining your process. And then when you feel ready for it, the kind of moving that stage up and speaking with an expert like yourself. And I use that word expert like very specifically here, because when it comes to AI, there's a term, and I'm sure you've come across it, human in the loop. And I feel we need to change this to expert in the loop. And simply because, yeah, even if you've been in business for 12 to 18 months, and you've been using ChatGPT alongside you to, create your marketing strategy, to do some of your copy, as well as building your website. There's fantastic tools out there now to help you do that. If you don't have the expertise like you have, Lucy, alongside you, there's still potentially a gap there. Would you agree with me on that?
Absolutely. I mean, for me, AI and the tools that people are using, for their content and so on, I mean, it's a thinking partner, but it can't make decisions for you. It doesn't know it just can't replace your lived experience. It can't replace your values, the stories that you bring to your business, which are usually your part of your key identifiers, or your differentiators from other people in the in your sector. So as I say, for me, it's good for exploring ideas, and it can accelerate clarity to a certain extent, but it can't replace strategic decisions.
Hmm.
Just can't. Like, you wouldn't outsource that to a computer. You just wouldn't. So,
Yeah.
judgment, taste, experience, empathy, it can't replace those things. So for me, it's, empathy with my clients, but also empathy with my clients' clients, that you have to
Yeah.
have a human in the loop, as you say. So
Mhm.
whether, yeah, I just think and my fear is that people do outsource those decisions
The outsourced
because
thinking sometimes, unfortunately, the critical thinking, and we do see it, and sometimes it is very obvious, sometimes it's not so obvious when you're looking at it. And it is the definite, maybe as someone who's a marketeer or a website designer, where you can see it, but it may not be as immediate to you because you don't have that experience, you don't have that knowledge to know that this looks wrong to
oh well.
the person, and even to your customer in reality.
Yeah, I mean, I look at websites all the time that people think are fine, and it's not that they're not fine, but I just know that they could,
They could be
it's usually
better. They could be improved. Yeah. Yeah.
that they've just jumped over the strategic bit. They've jumped over the brand,
Yes.
designing their brand. And I don't mean branding, I mean the brand, what the business stands for, why
Mhm.
they do what they do beyond making money, all of that good. That's what people buy. I mean, people say, oh, people buy from people. But that also, even businesses and brands, that's why we try and humanize them in the work that I do. I ask my clients questions like, if you met your brand walking down the street, what would they look like? Or if your brand had a Spotify playlist, what would that sound like? We're trying to humanize the brand
Oh,
because people buy from people that are brands that they see themselves reflected in, that they, it's maybe aspirational, and it has to be a human side to the
and
brand. So if you outsource everything to AI, I just think it misses, though. It doesn't ask you the right questions, and it doesn't help you sense check your answers with your own, as I say, lived experience and so on. So I mean, yeah.
one of the guests I had on the podcast recently, Mark James, was bringing up, and it's you may have come across this experiment as well of asking AI to go to a car wash, and it says the car wash is 100 meters away. Should I go by foot or should I bring my car? And because it's 100 meters away, AI still to this day, even with all its thinking models and everything else, is still suggesting to go by foot. And so it's missing that context. I think it's a really good point on what it is that we're speaking about here. The other side of it then as well, though, to talk about more of the positive side of things, like when you have that brand strategy, like what can that do for a person who's trying to use AI more in their business?
Well, I mean, it's much easier then to use it and to teach it to
Mhm.
understand the brand. I mean, it's all
Yeah.
about. I mean, I see it myself. It really is starting to know me now.
Yeah.
My tone of voice, knows my offers, knows how I think, knows my brand stories, the personal stories that I sometimes choose to share. It knows my offers. It knows who the
Yeah.
offers are for. It knows the voice of customer. I use it for voice of customer research. So I think once you have made those decisions around your brand strategy, it can just accelerate things like analyzing market research, or helping you sort of bridge that gap between content ideation and then actually helping you write content, say for social media or whatever. Still don't. So I use it to help me with my content creation for social media. I don't use it at the moment for, say, my email newsletter, because I'm actually that much closer to my client in their inbox. I would just want to be super careful that it really does sound like me, because for the
Yeah.
last years I've been writing my newsletters out of my own head and out
Yes.
my own style. And I just think when you're that close to your customers, you just have to be super careful that it doesn't sound like AI,
Uh-huh.
So but yes, you can pressure test your ideas. So if you're coming up with a new offer, or perhaps you're doing a webinar or something for lead generation or to promote a service, it can help you stress test your ideas around that. So as I say, it's more of a kind of a thinking partner, but it's an informed thinking partner when you've
When you
done.
have the brand strategy behind it as well. Yeah, yeah. And again, I always use my think, talk, train method to explain this, where you think like the CEO, do not give over your critical thinking essentially to AI. That strategy and everything else, it really should be coming from you. And if you have that documentation, on your website, and documents that you can share with whatever AI tool you're using so that it can learn that context from you, and that you're not having to do what I call groundhog prompting and
Yeah,
having to reshare that information each and every time and
absolutely.
reintroduce that context. And then it's, talk to it like it's an intern. It has all of this information, but as you said, it doesn't have that context of you yet. Like it can't understand to ask that question of like, what would your brand be if it was a song on Spotify? That's something, it's something that it just doesn't have, and it's because again, it can't start a new idea. Though those ideas are still
Mm,
coming from you, and it's being mirrored from you. And then
mm,
you're training it as if you're building out a team for it. So,
mm.
I'm always conscious on this podcast, Lucy, to make sure that we're kind of talking about the good and the bad, and kind of trying to decipher the messy middle for people who are listening out. And I feel we've hit the nail on the head there with this, where it's you can actually have that brand strategy. You're better off going to someone like yourself who has that expertise when you're ready for it. It's not to say that you're ready for it from the start of your journey, but to have that expertise, is so important. It's, even though AI could potentially try and replicate what it is you do, it's not like having Lucy on your site.
It's yeah, it's not like having it just isn't about it's not just not like having a human
Yeah.
who has emotions and experience and, as I mentioned earlier, empathy and can
Mm.
ask the right questions. Because in the brand strategy work, my job is really to ask questions and to, like, I'm really just unearthing what's already in, if you're my client, I'm just really unearthing what you already know and feel inside, or help you make decisions in some instances. But it's really about, getting it out of you and helping you make decisions, because that can be a difficult bit for people to actually go, okay, okay, this is a direction I want to go in, or this is a customer I want to serve. Like, you do actually have to make decisions. And I notice with clients that can take time, that can,
Yeah.
it's, there's not quick and easy work at all. It's quite deep,
Yeah.
reflective work, because you are planning the next stage in your business. So you don't want to just make decisions on a whim, or, you know,
No, and I think even during that kind of decision process, it is still a very handy tool to kind of say, like, look, these are the 10 decisions I'm trying to make in my business. You are a business consultant. Help me to work through it. Give me some further research and development. And it can be, as we said, that thinking partner in that, but it is still ultimately your decision on what direction you want to go. And on that as well, we've obviously kind of touched on like market research and analytics, which is where I feel myself anyway, I think the strength of AI can really come in for your business, because we have more access than ever before now at the touch of a button to do research for our business and to do market research for it. How do you use AI, kind of, I suppose, for market research and analysis in your business?
so for what I use it for is, so we do actual market research.
Hmm.
So, and then what I use AI for is to help me analyze that, to look for recurring trends, for, pull out the salient points, to be an analyst based on the data that we give it. And obviously I mean, there's all sorts of tools that survey tools and so on, that'll help you do that. But if you're just pumping in, you know, results of a question, interviews with people or whatever, it can just help you analyze that in seconds, which is super helpful. But I do also use it for online voice of customer research. So there's a prompt. I didn't write it. Prendergast, who you probably know, he
Mhm.
crafted a prompt that you put into ChatGPT, and then it gives you something which he recommends you take over to Claude. And basically, it scours the internet for the defined customer or defined persona is hanging out online, and it basically scours Reddit and Facebook forums and LinkedIn forums, and basically scours the internet for where these people are talking about whatever issue you want to get clarity on, or you want to know what they're saying. You want to know what they're saying in their words. So that can be super helpful. Now sometimes you have to check as usual, you have to check the sources. It'll say, oh, we found this in I don't know, a Mumsnet forum, and you may end somewhere totally random. But and so that then is super useful. Obviously, you can compare and contrast that with your actual, either testimonials or feedback from customers, or if you've done interviews. So it's just an additional source of data on the voice of customer. So that is super handy. And then obviously that then feeds into sales page design or your copy and so on, because what you want to do is feed back to your customer their
That's
problems or what they're
great.
trying to solve in their words.
can I just, I suppose, maybe just take a kind of get that by stages in reality? So what you're essentially saying is there's a prompt, you can put it into ChatGPT, and this is going to help you define those personas of your customers. And then once ChatGPT has done it, you take the information from ChatGPT and move it onto Claude. Now, from my kind of AI brain, the reason you're doing this in reality is ChatGPT is fantastic with the kind of the scripting
Mm.
of these prompts, etc. And Claude is really good at that kind of deep research in reality as well, depending on the mode that you're using it on. But the fact that you can kind of, I suppose, use the likes of perplexity in the background
Mhm.
with on Claude, which is why you're kind of suggesting move it over there, it's going to scour. Then what you're going to do is check your facts, do some fact check, just make sure that it's not, kind of getting this from a random, maybe an OnlyFans site or something that you don't really want to see. And then you're building out your customer personas and
Well, you're
using
building out you're understanding the language that they use to
that they're
describe
using.
their
Yeah. Yeah.
problems. So I remember I did it, it's a couple of years, well, maybe not a couple of years, but a year ago anyway. I was trying to find out what it was like midlife female entrepreneurs who were a bit embarrassed by their websites because
Mm.
invariably we all get to the point where we're a bit embarrassed. That's what I mean. It's like, okay, that was fine for now, but I'm actually much better than that, or I have bigger dreams than what that
Mm.
communicates. So I wanted to know how that cohort of female entrepreneurs in a certain age group, what they were saying,
Mm.
kind of confirmed what I already knew, but it was
Yeah.
just interesting.
Maybe the
And I could then
language.
compare that
Yeah.
with the actual things that humans say to me on a day-to-day
Yeah.
basis, which is like,
Yeah.
I can't even look at my website anymore. So it's just confirming my research. And so I can then take that language and use it in my own marketing so that and this happens to me all the time, I put things up on LinkedIn and people go, oh my God, I feel seen. And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
yeah, because I know, I understand my
Yeah.
customer. So, but
Yeah.
this tool or this prompt just meant that I was able to see what women in the US were saying. I've just got a word, kind of a world, well, English language, obviously. Um, the prompt was in English, but so yeah, that voice of customer research, you can see exactly what people are saying. Now they have to be saying it on the internet somewhere. So that's why I say
Yeah.
forums, Facebook groups, anywhere that it can get access. It feeds it back to you. So that was fascinating. And as I say, you can then use that to write your sales pages or your landing pages or your social media marketing or
And
whatever.
you said that you feel that customers are resonating more with your messaging since you've started to use AI. Do
Absolutely.
you think that this is the reason for it? Is that you have access to all this information, or is there more to it?
No, I think it's because it's allowed me to ramp up
Yeah.
the quantity of posts. I'm more prolific in my posting
Okay.
because it's giving me different ways of. I mean, I'm essentially trying to repeat the same message.
Yes.
Like that's what we all want to become known for something. So for a long time, my
Mhm.
early part of my business, I was just talking about websites. I was just talking about Squarespace, and
Mm.
my own brand strategy has evolved over the years. So I'm now trying to position myself as a designer, yes, but a strategic designer, and who starts with
Mhm.
strategy because I believe design without strategy is just kind of like decoration, basically. But anyway, so I had to change my own messaging. So I do know my customer, like I really do know my customer. But ChatGPT or Claude has just now allowed me to multiply, um, the amount of content. But it's not. I'm hoping it's not just content for the sake of content; that it's strategically designed content.
So it's kind of a combination though, isn't it? It is the strategy, and it's the strategy you are, I suppose, kind of keeping AI as a thinking partner into building out that strategy for you. Plus the fact that now that it's helping you to come up with these designs and everything else, you can now put out more content than you were able to before. But it's value content. It's not rubbish content. It's not
I hope.
generic robotic.
Oh well, it's on brand. It's content, in it's saying what I want to say to the customer that I'm trying to attract. I have my visual identity, so people start, I know people now recognize my posts because they have a certain look and feel. I've got my
Mhm.
brand photography, I have my visual identity. And so people start to that's what you want. You want people to, oh,
Yes.
that's one of Lucy's posts because it looks like this and this is what she's talking about. So but you have to have the clarity of thinking before you just start pumping
Out.
things out for the sake of it. So it all comes back to clarity around, and that's
Mhm.
what I say to people who people say to me, I'm really stuck with my marketing.
Mhm.
Invariably, it's because they don't have a brand strategy. Because if you have a brand strategy and you've used that then to inform your website, which is your kind of digital home, your social media is just an extension of that. It's not. It doesn't
Yes. Almost like
be
the window, isn't it? Yeah, yeah.
not it shouldn't be radically. It's like, well, you have your offers, you know your customers, so you're speaking to those people on social media. You know what their pain points are because you've done the brand strategy and the market research. It's like, but people insist on putting the cart before the horse and going, "Oh, I have to be singing and dancing on Instagram every day."
Mhm.
But it's a little bit pray and spray and pray, or hit the wall, or
Marketing spaghetti is what I used to call it. Yeah, yeah, like it's throwing marketing spaghetti at the wall, hoping it sticks.
I mean, I do believe that your marketing also needs its own strategy, because
Mhm.
marketing is all, well, what are you trying to sell? And at what point in the year are you in campaign mode versus, sort of helpful, useful content mode? Or, it has to be measured. And that's why
Yes.
I don't do
Yeah.
marketing. It's all about the numbers. So I'm not saying like brand strategy and marketing strategy, there is a lot of overlap,
Yeah.
but start with one and it'll make the marketing strategy a lot easier to devise, because you'll know, well, I'm actually trying to bring in, I don't know, I'm trying to, you'll know how much money you want to make this year, and you'll know what your offers are, and you'll have figured out, well, I
You'll be
know I need to
comfortable
sell,
doing this.
6 of
Yeah.
my group programs, and I need 24 one-to-one clients if you're a coach or a service provider,
Yeah.
got all that. And then so you can go to your marketing strategist and go, okay, these are the goals for the next few years. How
Yes.
can you help me with, devise a marketing strategy that will help me reach those goals? So but if you don't know what you're trying to build, I don't
It's
know
much
how you market it.
Yeah. And obviously when we were talking about that prompt, we were saying about kind of, I suppose, starting with ChatGPT and moving over to Claude.
Mm.
What AI tools are your kind of go-to tools? What ones are you currently looking at using yourself?
It's mostly ChatGPT and Claude, although I am seriously considering dropping ChatGPT because of who I'm
Mhm.
funding inadvertently. So that is a decision I'm going to make in the next. I just need to do it. I think my understanding is that it's not that difficult. I know you have something. I saw something on your social media how you're going to explain to people how to do it. Uh,
Mhm.
it doesn't mean that you lose everything. I mean, you can basically export and import. So anyway, then I also use things like Fathom for recording Zooms with clients.
Mhm.
So again, so that I can go back over use the transcript, or the AI tool can answer questions, see where, any patterns.
Mhm.
Are there questions that I missed? Are there things that I need to go back and ask the client about at the next, so it can helps me
Mhm.
analyze my work and my meetings with my clients as well. And so I use Fathom. I probably use AI tools without even realizing
Knowing it.
that
Yeah. Because there is AI
AI
behind it a
behind
lot
it.
in the background of
Uh,
certain things as well. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
sometimes use AI that's attached to my Google Workspace for writing emails, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't usually agree with what it's prompting me to say.
Yeah.
So I might go back to ChatGPT for that. If there's something that I know I'm being a bit wordy and long-winded, I might just go, I want to say this. Can you just tighten that up for me? So the platforms that I use, so for web design, I'm designing still obviously a lot in Squarespace and also on Kajabi, and they have AI
Mhm.
inbuilt to a certain extent. Do I use it? I don't really think I do. Like Squarespace will ask you when you first start a site, you know, what's the site about or who's it for?
Yeah.
Or I tend to skip over that because I kind of know what I'm doing. I sort of know
Yeah.
what I'm doing, and I end up changing the layouts anyway.
And because of that as well, like, I mean, and again, you've built up that skill. I mean, how many years have you
I'm
been,
8 this is my 8th year, yeah.
so, and again, it's for anyone who's kind of listening to this as well and thinking like, do I need to replace AI for doing X, Y, and Z? That's a really good point where certain times that technology does get better and it may be worth, moving over to it. But if it's something that you actually enjoy doing, if you enjoy the process, like, why not just continue to do the way that you're doing it?
I mean, I've thought about that. I mean, I know I could go into Lovable and it will build a website in about 5 seconds, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the same control. Like, I have to keep
Yeah.
telling it stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in Squarespace or Kajabi, whatever, you have the thing in front of you and it's all click and drag now. And also, I have a much bigger view of the whole site and I can think about the customer journey. And yes, I've been doing it for a long time, so it's easy for me. But I'm more interested in seeing how those platforms make it easier for me to design and build. And they're working on it all
Mm-hmm.
the time. There's just new things coming out all the time. But I think at the end of the day, also my ambition has always been to make building a business online for small business owners, easy, enjoyable, dare I say, a fun process. And tools like Squarespace and so on still make it easy for me to hand them to fulfill that promise to my clients because I can hand them over a tool that they'll be able to add their own blogs or add a new product to their e-commerce shop or whatever, or add a course in Kajabi. And because it's their number one marketing tool and they
Yeah.
need to be able to take ownership of it. So I could go to Lovell, but I have no idea how I would hand that over to my client and how they would take charge of that. Maybe it's super easy. I don't know, but I don't know.
But it's look at it, and again, like that, I love Lovable. I use it quite often, and I use it a lot for prototyping things to show people what it is that they could potentially do, and get them to go off and do it themselves in their own words, etc. And I think it is a really good point as well, where it's that kind of that FOMO that goes on an awful lot as well. Of, do I need to purchase all these different tools?
Mm, mm.
Your AI tool stack in reality is quite, it's quite small. But as you mentioned at the very start of this, it knows you now. It knows that brand, and that's why you're getting the results from it, because you spend time training specific tools to create specific outputs that are benefiting your business. So you don't need an entire, 20 different tools to do that. Your business is working just the way it is. If that was one message I'd love for anybody listening to this to take away, that would be it. It's, okay, you might end up moving away to ChatGPT, but that's a political reason, if anything else, as opposed to not actually being able to get the results out of that too.
I mean, I am excited to see what's coming down the line. I mean, I would
Yeah.
love if you're probably going to tell me this is possible, but I don't think it really is possible. But I would love if when I come up with my social media posts in whatever tool I'm using, that it can then go into my Canva and just do it
Do it.
based on my that I don't have to go in and resize the text because there's more text on the post than there was before, or, change the photo or resize the line spacing or like it would just do it. Like
Yeah.
that's coming. That has got to be coming. At the
It
moment,
is already here.
it's not really doing it
It's
properly.
not, I was going to say it is here, but it is not doing it at an expert level like
Not
yourself.
at all. Not at all.
I don't know if you have played around with a tool called Manus. This is a complete rabbit hole with this now, but Manus was purchased by Meta. And so you can now access, it's on beta version at the moment, that you can access your Instagram and access your Facebook as a connector with it. And the fact that Meta or Manus now has this access to Facebook and Instagram in reality and to their database does mean that they're, as well as having access to Nano Banana, Google's, a creation tool, does mean that the graphics do come out a lot better than what you could potentially produce using ChatGPT connecting it to Canva.
Oh yeah, no, that's a disaster at the moment. I tested
Mhm.
Blaze last week.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So I uploaded all selection of my brand photos, some of me with some of my prop shot, photos
Hmm.
that don't have my face in them. And oh my God, it was very tempting. So it designed all these posts for all the different platforms that I'm on. It took my photo, but created other versions of that photo. So me in different poses, different clothing. Um, and
Did you look like yourself?
well, it did, but it didn't.
Yeah.
And then it had videos of me talking. So it took
Yeah.
my photo of me in my cream linen dress that I need a
Mhm.
new photo shoot. It's all over the place. And it and there I was talking. I couldn't hear myself. It had a music,
Okay.
but I
Yeah.
said to my partner and I was like, "Is that what I look like when I talk?" And he's like, "Kind of
No.
look you, but it does." So if you didn't
Yeah.
know me, I'd actually be
Good.
probably happy with it. Maybe I lost about 10 pounds, so I was quite happy. But
Why does it always make you skinnier? Like I always see that as well.
I was very tempted by that. And it just, because what it did was the first step was, and this goes back to my point earlier, it asked me to share my website.
Mm,
So it basically went and learned all about my business, picked up my tone of
yes.
voice, took some of my photos, I uploaded more, read all
Yeah.
about my offers. It got it
Mm,
pretty well. And suddenly here's all my social media and you've connected. Anyway, I didn't sign up because I was like, no, those photos are just not right enough. And I
yeah.
didn't have time to go in and tweak it. And anyway, I was only testing it. But I thought, okay, now we're cooking. This is really good.
And it is an interesting point because Blaze is one of those specialized websites, and it is only going to get better over time in reality because it's doing one task really, really well. And as you said yourself, like, the fact that I remember testing Blaze like a year and a half ago, and it was not up to the same standard that it is today, kind of thing.
Oh, interesting.
And it is getting better. And, I went onto YouTube last night and it was one of the first times I've seen this happen where I started to watch a video and I went, that's not a real person. It was a 4-hour video that was completely generated by AI. But a person, and it looked like it was a person like you and I are chatting here, in his room, and he'd created an entire course using an avatar. And to a certain extent, again, like that, it did take me a few minutes. You can imagine you're listening to it on a podcast, you would definitely be fooled because the voice is much better. As you said yourself, it's like the little movements, the graphics just were not 100%, but it definitely took me longer than you would have expected to notice. But it has come on that far. And people are creating this level of 4-hour course. It had over 600,000 views.
And I guess the question is, at the end of the day, as the consumer of the content, did you care that it was AI generation?
Yeah, I did. I did. I kind of felt cheated.
Good, good. That's the right answer.
Maybe it isn't something that I should say as an AI strategist myself, but I did. I kind of felt a bit. Well, I think the reason I felt cheated was after a while I started to realize how bad. I thought after 10 minutes I was kind of getting out of the introduction stage, and then I started to realize I was actually in the introduction stage still. And I realized it was scripted. It wasn't like
Mm,
he had an avatar and then he, produced the scripts. The script itself was most likely created by a robot as well.
of course.
This is where you kind of start to notice where the difference is between that expert and the robot, essentially. It's almost like expert versus robot, isn't it? And, whereas I'm like, okay, I'm here to try and learn this one thing to do on Claude. And, I've sat down for a 4-hour video. I'm tuned in now for it. But I haven't gotten past the introduction stage and I could have just plugged this myself into Claude to get it. And, it did take me 10 minutes to realize this, but then once I did, I was like, I'm not going to get any value from this 4-hour workshop because there is no expertise behind it. There is no one,
So
you
imagine
know,
if they were trying to charge. I mean, that's why I think actually, I mean, some people say, oh, the people like me, we're just going to be wiped out by AI.
mm,
We're going to need creative thinking, or, I actually
yeah,
think, if anything, it's the
there's more
time
need for
to
you.
well, it's if you stand out by, your authenticity. I'm sorry, everyone hates that word.
Yes,
People really do buy from people.
they do. People will always buy from people. And I do not see that part changing anytime soon. I'm sure I'll probably have a few people who might come after me from this. And again, as I said, he had 600,000 views. So he is monetizing on that because you do get money from YouTube for having that. Now, whether they were all bots
I was
watching it as
going to say
well, is
600,000
another
off.
side of it, you know. There's layers to this. There's layers upon layers, and it's hard. But I really do think, Lucy. I suppose to kind of end on a good note here, it's really positive to hear your story about how it is that you're using it because I feel that brand strategy, keeping that expert in the loop and using it strategically within your business, and keeping again the tools tight that you're not, I suppose, trying to overextend your tool use. Being curious, like you did with Blaze, testing out what is and what isn't going to work. It's always good to know and to be curious about it, but not letting it in the driver's seat.
Well, no. I mean, why would you hand over your business to somebody else who's not even, they're
Yes.
not even human? I mean, I
Yeah.
just, you're not doing yourself or your customers any favors if
Yeah.
you owe it to yourself and you owe it to your colleagues and people you work with and your customers to
Mhm.
um, take the time to make those decisions around your business and decide how you want to show up for people and talk about your values and your stories and why you do what you do. And that's what we all, but I mean, everybody quotes Patagonia as you know, the brand with the story behind it that
Yeah.
people really empathize with. But that's what it is. It's empathy. It's human connection. It's just the core of why we're in business. We all ultimately want to help other people. We're all in business to solve some sort of problem for people, for other humans. And I just think if you take the human element out of that, well, you're not going to succeed. I don't believe you'll succeed. You may get
Mm,
100,000,
mm,
but they won't buy from you or they won't spend a lot of money with you anyway. So if you want to build
mm,
a successful
mm.
business, invest in your brand strategy and then use the tools to amplify your story, amplify your expertise and the value that you bring to your customers. Yeah, it can help you scale, but it can't replace the strategic thinking.
That's a fabulous note to end on, Lucy. But before we do go, is there anything else that you feel we haven't covered today or that you think that people should know about?
Well, we didn't discuss at all the use of AI for things like designing logos or
That's
for.
true. Might need to bring you on for a part two to kind of get into all
I
of
think
that.
people probably know what I'm going to say, but there again, what I use it for, so I don't use it for designing logos, but I do use it to sense check my design and go, what do you think this says about this company?
Mm.
Just to see, is it actually saying what I what I wanted to
What do
say
you think
or
it's saying?
communicating,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but yeah, I just think at the moment using AI for logo design or your images and so on. I mean, whatever about the using AI and the effect on the environment, we haven't even discussed either. But um,
No.
I see people using AI for their imagery, and I just think nothing beats a photo of actual people or an actual workshop or a shop or you're just I don't know.
You see enhancements. I do, there is definitely a place for it, but again, like that, it's about finding the balance that works for you and your particular customer and who it is that you want to speak with. And, again, there's a lot to be said about kind of going all in, whole hog AI, and maybe that will appeal to a different audience base. But there are other options out there, which is the main point. Lucy, if someone wants to get in touch with you, how can they do it and how could they possibly work with you?
So if people would like to look me up, you can find me on www.designsforgrowth.ie. I'm also on LinkedIn under Lucy O'Reilly, and I'm on Instagram, Designs for Growth. Happy to talk to anybody who's maybe looking at their brand or thinking about the fact that maybe they haven't got a strategy for their brand going forward or don't know how to position themselves or differentiate themselves in the market. Or, as I say, maybe looking at their website going, yeah, it's looking a bit 2019. I think I'm worth more than that. Happy to do audits or discuss with people what's going on with them in their business. Yeah, and you can book a discovery call on my website as well if anybody's interested in working up with me on their strategy or their brand design or their websites.
Fantastic, Lucy. Thank you so much for being here today. I already feel like we may need to have a second part, but leave it in the comments. Let me know. Should I bring Lucy back in again as well?
It's
um,
been great fun.
take care now.
AI is already inside your business. The real change happens when you start using it on purpose. If this conversation was helpful, follow the AI effect. Leave a short review and share this episode with someone who's figuring this out alongside you. I'm Tara Zanker, and I'm back soon with more real talk on what's working, what's breaking, and how to make AI feel doable, not daunting.